In this video, we'll look at how to build some of the elements from our example report that is built with our XLCubed sample data connection. More specifically, the dynamic grids with slicers, the range selection grid, and the item search grid. Here, I have 3 slicers, one for product, one for calendar year, and one for territory. I can set up each of these slicers to determine what is shown in my grid. First, I will change the filters on my grid to pick up the date slicer. The slicer is set up to display the quarters, so I can just pick the quarter I want to view in my grid. Let's now look at the rows. I'll go into the product category member selector and select the slicer for product. I'll select it twice and change the second selection to the descendants, so I can choose once in my slicer and have that member appear as my total, and then the breakup of it appear beneath that. Next, I will look at the territories on columns. Here, I will simply select the slicer in my member selector. The slicer has multi-select enabled, so you can select multiple countries. Selecting multiple countries will give you multiple columns, and if you only select a single country, you will have a single column displaying the measures we have chosen. We now have a dynamic grid that is controlled by 3 slicers, which determine the filter and what is displayed on rows and on columns. Finally, let's adjust the formatting by right-clicking on Gross Margin and selecting XLCubed, Formatting, and format this member. I will set the border to be displayed on the right so I can differentiate between the different countries. I will then right-click on Accessories and format the level so that it has a border and appears in bold to make it stand apart. Finally, I want to see my subcategories as well, so I will format that level by right-clicking again and setting the font to bold. I will make sure that the borders are set to no borders so I don't overwrite any of the previous formatting that has been set. We now have a grid that is dynamically formatted, even with changes in selection. Here, we want to build a grid where we can control what is displayed using Excel ranges by typing the members to display directly into the cells of the worksheet. To do this, I will simply use the XLCubed functionality to derive a grid from a range. I can set this in the member selector and select the range that will contain the inputs I want. I will do this for both product and for year. For product, I simply select the range itself. For year, I will choose to display the descendants at quarter level of the cell containing my date, and then the cell itself to have the total. I can now put any valid product that is found in the hierarchy into the range I have selected, and this will drive my grid and update the numbers for it. We can then type any valid year into the cell at the top and have the grid filtered for that year. Power users and analysts that know their data can easily filter the grid. This is particularly useful for hierarchies containing product codes or other complicated codes that the user knows well. This grid is set up to display all my products on rows. We want to enable the possibility to filter the members being returned based on a text string in an Excel cell. To do this, we simply go into the member selector and navigate to the Advanced tab, which will allow us to set elaborate filtering options for a grid. We then choose the member search functionality. In the menu, I can set the search to pick up an Excel range to give us more flexibility than simply inputting a text string. I can then set the search to look for any product that contains the text string from my cell rather than just begins with it. You can now see that when I type into that cell, my grid is being directly filtered and only displaying products that match. We can also set up the grid to dynamically update a named range based on the size of the data To do this, we simply go to the Properties menu for the grid and go to the Interaction tab. Here, we can add a name range that will pick up the data part of our grid. We can then add a sum formula that picks up that name range to give us the total value of the products displayed.